As a matter of fact, I'll give you some information right now that probably not too many people know, but there was a supplement that came out on the market for arthritis. It was almost a miracle, and it used to cost $300 for a bottle when it first came out. And what they would say is, you take 3 capsules a day for 10 days, and we recommend you do it for 20 days, and your arthritis will go away. And it kind of went away for most people from what I read and the people I've talked to. But what they did is, because the product was so expensive, is they came out with instructions that say, well, you want to eliminate.
Steve, how did you find carnivore?
Well, I was always sort of a meat eater and a quasi carnivore. And in my retirement here, I was scanning YouTubes, and I came across the doctor down in Tennessee. Oh boy, his name skips my mind. Ken Berry. And not so much that they told me anything new, but as I mentioned in one of my YouTubes, it brought back memories of my grandfather, who lived to be 90, which was quite good for, the situation he was in. He was a factory worker, and I think more people died of accidents and smoking back then than anything else. But he was primarily a meat eater. He used to have a slab of bacon. He cut off a slab of smoked bacon, and he'd eat it. And that was his main meal. I mean, and he loved fatty foods. I mean, for Christmas, he used to get a suckling pig. And I mean, a suckling pig, a really tiny one. And he would eat that. It was almost all fat. What was nice is he really lived to an old age, and the rest of my family and most of the doctors I knew were dying of heart attacks and strokes, and pretty much all of them died from something related to a heart attack or a stroke. And as I was on the road mostly, representing different companies at different periods of time, but I traveled extensively, and there was always overnight. So almost always I used to get a steak or some type of meat. I almost never ate the bread and salad. I don't know why, but I never did. Okay, well, then about the time I was 50, I stopped traveling. And as I got older, I said, well, gee, I want to live a healthier lifestyle. So I started eating grains and bread and potatoes. And naturally, when I got hooked on the carbs, I was starting to get into the sweets and the pies and the donuts in the morning. And I started gaining weight. And my blood pressure went through the ceiling. And I had at least 25 or 30 different systems or symptoms, symptoms that I could relate to. I mean, and then I started getting high blood pressure and went to my cardiologist, and he put me on a couple of beta blockers, and didn't help at all. The blood pressure still was going up. I stayed on the beta blockers. I mean, it came down a little bit, but it was still probably over 140 over maybe 70 or something. But I went back, I took a stress test. My heart was basically okay. What did I want to say? He wanted to put me on more drugs. He wanted to put me on a statin. And I did all the research on a statin. And I saw for people in the age group, when I went to see him, and I was in my 70s already, when he wanted to put me on a statin, the statins didn't show any difference in the death rate. Actually, they've got stats now that show people who are on statins have a larger death rate than those who don't take them for the same age group. And I said, absolutely not. I'm not taking any statins. I'm not taking any more drugs. I was suffering from high blood pressure. Then I had what they call TIGs, transient ischemic attacks, which is a mini stroke. And I got the mini strokes and I couldn't even speak. I mean, my speech was slurred and it sounded really terrible. And I said, this is enough. And I decided to go on the carnivore diet after reading all this. And I went on the carnivore diet, and that wasn't the only problems I had. I had night sweats. I had arthritis where I couldn't even walk up the steps one at a time. I had back aches. I had floaties in my eyes. My vision would get blurry. I'm watching TV, and all of a sudden, boy, you can't see what's going on there. So I went on the diet, and I said, I can do this. I mean, the only thing is, it is very difficult. I gave up coffee. I gave everything. I went on a straight, what I guess they refer to as the lion diet, just beef, salt, butter, and I started getting amazing results. I mean, uh, in a matter of, I would say, 2 weeks, well, my weight started coming down. And I think weight is related to sickness also. I lost 75 pounds on the carnivore diet over a period of about a year. I mean, I went down recently, I looked at my discharge papers when I got out of the service, and I'm the same weight as I was 60 years ago. So that's amazing because I was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And uh, a lot of the trouble going up and down stairs when you're getting arthritis, getting rid of that extra weight helps a lot. So my weight came down, my back pains went away, my floaties in my eyes went away. I had night sweats, they went away. I had diverticulitis, it went away. I mean, I was on antacids probably from the time I was in my late 20s up until about 3 or 4 years ago. Nothing worked for me. I mean, I used to do the Tums and the Malox and everything else, all those over the counter drugs. Nothing worked until about the 1990s when they had prescription Pepsid out, and I took those, and wow, it was a miracle. And then they came out with the over the counter Pepsids, and I used to chew those. And you're supposed to take maybe one a day. I was chewing four a day just before I started the carnivore diet. Well, needless to say, all of that went away and that healed. My skin cleared up. I was getting aging spots or liver spots. Some people say it's from drinking, some people say it's from getting old. Well, I used to drink. I wouldn't call myself an alcoholic, but I had a drink or two every day, especially when I was out on the road and I had to take somebody out to dinner. We'd always have a drink and maybe a glass of wine. So I quit all that. And the results were just fantastic. I mean, I can walk up and down the steps. I'm over 80 years old now. I'm going to be 81 soon. And I don't have any trouble moving around. I'm flexible again. I got a droop in one eye over here. And that, I think, was from one of the TIAs I had a mini stroke. But the other thing, what's the other thing? Oh, I used to get depression occasionally. I'd see something happening and I would get depressed about it. Well, right now, I guess it's sad to say in a way, but I don't get depressed about anything. I mean, I might be sad for some things that happened or happy, but I never get depressed. And not that I got depressed much any before, but it was occasionally. And what am I talking about? Depression. What else? There are other things there. Oh, hair. My hair used to fall out in the shower. There are clumps of it. I haven't lost a strand of hair, I don't think, in 2 years. I mean, I'm sure one came out. It comes out with old age, but the blemish is cleared up, the hair doesn't fall out. I can walk up and down the steps. I don't get night sweats. My back doesn't hurt. It's truly amazing. And I think the other thing I would say about the carnivore diet is, I'm a very proficient procrastinator. I can put things off really well, and especially since I don't have to go to work. I don't have to answer to anybody except the wife, of course. Uh, I can procrastinate, and I do occasionally slip and get off the diet. And, I can have two McDonald's French fries, and at night, I'll start cramping up. I mean, I'll get a leg cramps, or if I get a cramp at my little finger, the little finger will go back like this. It feels like it's ready to fall off. Any body part that I moved, I would get a cramp in. So I can't do carbs at all, really, especially carbs with fried and veggie oils, which are the worst for you. But I have found out that one of the best things for you is fat. As a matter of fact, I'll give you some information right now that probably not too many people know, but there was a supplement that came out on the market for arthritis. It was almost a miracle, and it used to cost $300 for a bottle when it first came out. And what they would say is, you take 3 capsules a day for 10 days, and we recommend you do it for 20 days, and your arthritis will go away. And it kind of went away for most people from what I read and the people I've talked to. But what they did is, because the product was so expensive, is they came out with instructions that say, well, you want to eliminate sugars and carbs, and while you're taking this. And if you eliminate the sugars and carbs, you'll feel better. And they did. But one of the things is this product, which they refer to as CMO, or acetomyrostoleate, which a researcher came out with. He claims he extracted it from the bone marrow of albino white mice. And he injected himself with the extraction, and his arthritis went away. Well, another doctor came around, wanted to make a product out of it, but you need a hell of a lot of white albino mice. So what he did is he took and found another source of it. And the source of this acetomyrostoleate was found in beef tallow. And what they did is, basically, these capsules were refined beef tallow. I mean, they did get this product called acetomyrostoleate out of it, but the beef tallow actually got rid of people's arthritis, and it's found in fat. So if you eat beef and you eat a lot of fat, your arthritis is going to go away, and you'll be able to walk if you're having problems now. And that's pretty much, I just threw that in there because I found it very interesting. And CMO, if you look, it's still on the market. You can buy it on Amazon, but you don't need to. All you need to do is eat some ribeyes, and it's cheap. So the ribeye is cheaper than the acetomyrostoleate.
Yeah, and I love the part, when you're taking these, get rid of sugar from your diet. Well, so, of course, the inflammation's going to clear up as well, right? If you're getting rid of the
Right.
sugars. Mm.
Yeah, that's all important. Sugar, the carbs have a big effect. And, when I goof, and it's a holiday or something, and I go out, and I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, I had terrible cravings. I felt like having a chocolate cake or something, with frosting and everything on it. And I treated myself to carbs and wine. I went out and made some croissants, and I got some Cabernet Sauvignon and I had a glass of wine and fresh roasted croissants, and I paid the price immediately. But and it's not worth it, really. It's not worth paying the price. But somehow, after basically doing what you want to do for 80 years and then stopping cold turkey, it's really difficult. I mean, I was a smoker, and I mean a chain smoker. I when I used to fly in the old days, and we're going back to the 1950s, they used to give you free cigarettes on the airplanes, the little 5 packs of cigarettes, and all the cigarette companies would be fighting to, you know, give their cigarettes away, get people hooked on the plane. So, I started smoking way back when, and I quit it, and it was difficult. And it took me probably 3, 4 tries where I quit for long periods of time, but just had one cigarette when I was out, going out to dinner, being with people, lighting up, and one cigarette and you're hooked again. That's all it took. And they tasted terrible too. If you quit smoking for about 6, 8 months and started again, the cigarettes were horrible. But again, it's a process, and you have to go through whatever process you require. Everybody's a little different, and even the diets are a little different. What I really was starting to say was the only diet that really works for me is the lion diet. And well, lion strictly they say beef, but I throw in other animal products. I throw in primarily lamb and pork occasionally. I love a good pork roast, and uh, I think pork's okay for you too, based on my genealogy there, looking at my grandfather and what happened there. So the thing is that if you stick with it, the results are miraculous. And I think, I'm going to die someday. I came close a couple times in my life, but the thing is, I don't want to die being on 30 pills and not being able to walk up and down the steps. Right now, uh, I feel maybe I'm off base here, but I feel that as I get older, one day I'm just going to fall asleep and not wake up, but I won't be in pain all that time. The pain, if I follow the instructions of my doctor and the physicians out there, I would be in really sad shape, because right now the medical industry is run by the pharmaceutical companies. And the pharmaceutical companies are out there uh, not to help you. They're out there, they're a profit making industry. They're out there to make a profit. I used to work with the pharmaceutical industry, not in it, but with it. And, you know, look, to go back to the 1950s again, I'm an old guy. The hospitals in the United States were all run by nonprofit organizations. In this part of the country, we had a lot of Lutherans and Catholics. There were a heck of a lot of Lutheran hospitals and Catholic hospitals. And when you got in a major metropolitan area, you got a Jewish hospital. Uh, but none of them were for profit. Now they're all for profit. And when I go to my own hospital, I have the wherewithal to look at the reports and what the doctor is saying and say, no, I'm not going to do this. And my doctor is pretty good. He says, well, okay, it's your life. And I like that. It is my life, and I'll make the decisions on it. But they were pushing, especially after COVID, they lost so much money. They were pushing procedures and shots, and they wanted to do a couple operations on me, and I wouldn't let them.
So, you're eating basically lion. So each day, like, are you eating, I don't know, lunch and dinner or breakfast, lunch? How are you eating?
Well, it varies. because I'm not the only one in the house, and my wife usually does the cooking. So me, I can get by an OMAD or 1 meal a day, but she can't. So I ended up eating usually in the morning and maybe the early afternoon. So I do two a day, but I sometimes go on a fast and sometimes I will fast for 2 or 3 days. And, that's a good way to get you back into autophagy uh, to where you're really keto and you're burning fat. It's especially helpful if you go off the diet, if you come back on it, wean yourself away from the carbs again and slowly go back on the carnivore diet. And after you've been on it for maybe a week or so, to do a little fast. Fasting is very helpful.
So is your wife joining you on this?
Intermittently. Um, she said my biggest downfall is her because she can't keep away from the carbs sometimes and she has to go out and get something. And I have no uh, self resistance there. I just, I see her eating something. Maybe I'll just take a little bite. Little bite gets out of control. And so she's my biggest downfall to stay really strict. But I always, because let me tell you, uh, if you get off for any period of time, I've been on for about 3 years off and on now. When you get off the carnivore diet, you slide downhill very rapidly. It's not a slow progression. In a matter of a week, you can be almost back where you were. But I found that going back on the diet so far gets me right back where I was, but I don't know how many times I can pull that off. I think your body, when I was younger, I could eat just about anything, but I was very active. I wouldn't gain weight. I felt good. But eating all this junk over a period of 80 years, I believe, and I've got nothing to back this up, but I believe your body gets saturated with the poisons from these processed foods. And after a certain period of time, you just can't handle anymore. And I think that's why when I go off the diet, it doesn't take very long for me to start sliding backwards and regressing.
So you're taking no meds now?
No, no, I haven't taken any meds for 3 years.
That's awesome. And feeling really good, right?
Yeah, my blood pressure, dropped down. When I go off the diet, it zooms up to around 150 over 80, and get back on the diet, which I am right now. I'm back on the diet. It goes back down to a high of about 120 over 72, 73. And yeah. Oh, but I have to put a little disclaimer on that. It's not just the diet, but I love coffee, and especially in a cold winter day, there's a chill in the air, and I love a hot drink. And coffee was my drink of choice. And I drink a cup of coffee, and boom, blood pressure is through the ceiling. I'm one of these people who cannot tolerate coffee. I come off the coffee and I'm right back down.
Have any friends commented on the way you're eating? You've been doing this for 3 years. Has anyone showed interest?
Uh, Not really. I mean, they do, they ask questions, they think I'm nuts, which they're probably right.
It's kind of, I guess, yeah, people show interest and then they're like, it's a good conversation, but then they start to feel like, "Ah, this is not for me. This is not for me."
Well, it is difficult. You have to be committed. And my wife, most women, when they get over 50, 60, they have a problem with weight. For some reason, I think the carbs stick to women much more than they do to men. So she was always on these diets, and she took me along with her. I mean, I was on a some kind of green concoction with spinach in it, and we went Weight Watchers and went to another one. I even forgot the name, and she was on the bulletproof diet, and we tried all sorts of things. And this is for me. I was overweight too, as I said. I got 75 pounds overweight, but to me, this was the only thing that worked. And the thing about it is you can really eat as much as you want. You don't have to count calories. But sometimes I know it gets a little monotonous eating beef and fat and everything else all the time. One of the big problems I have with some carnivores out there, and bless them, if it's working for them, I think you should do whatever works for you. And this is the only thing that works for me. But they want to take the carnivore diet, and all of a sudden they're making all of these concoctions and mixing it together. Oh, well, we got ground chicken with eggs and something else, and we're making this. And no, they're trying to recreate their old diet. They're trying to recreate the processed foods out there, and it doesn't work. And one thing I will tell you, and again, I don't have the scientific data to back it up, but every time you process the food, you lose nutrients. Uh, if you could eat a steak, kill the cow and eat the raw meat there, that would have the most nutrients in it. When you fry it, you get a little less, but still a hell of a lot. I mean, I can't eat raw meat. I couldn't even eat sushi, which everybody was eating. I never cared for it. But I do eat a lot of hamburger, beef. But when you process the hamburger, there are 2 points of processing. One is grounding up the meat. You're already losing some of the nutrients from the heat caused by the equipment. Number two is when you fry it, you're losing more. Okay, but hamburgers are still good in your diet. But then as you go down, further down the line, and you start really making some of these concoctions that are all well done meats and eggs that are, almost crispy, I think you lose a lot of nutrients. And plus, I don't get, I enjoy a good fat ribeye or strip steak. I always prefer the texture of strip steaks more, but I like a good steak done on a grill. I mean, I like that little charring on it. I do them myself, and we do have a indoor air fryer because when there's a blizzard outside and it's 20 below zero, I'm not going to go make a steak on the grill. I'm not that hardy. But uh, yeah, even that, they come out pretty good. A good quality ribeye or a good quality steak. And there are cheaper cuts of beef you can use. And we use cheaper cuts of beef. I mean, we use chuck and everything else. But primarily the thing that did it for me is the ribeyes. And when I originally went on the diet and got the really tremendous results, it was ribeyes. And that's about all, just ribeyes and water. And I even put butter on it to get a little more fat in there. And it worked beautifully.
Nice. Um, so what advice would you give to a friend if they were starting carnivore? What would you tell them to get them to stay the distance?
What I would tell them to stay the distance is probably keep a record. Almost everybody who is really sick, if you're really sick, then you pretty much need the lion diet. That's my personal opinion. That's where you'll see the greatest results. But if you're just starting off and you want to ease into it, that's fine. Just eat meat. But keep records. Record your weight, record your measurements. I used to step on a scale every day and watch it when I started. It's bouncing up and down. And uh, I was losing probably on average about 3 pounds a week when I started. And then, they say you lose a lot of water initially when you go on any diet, and then it slopes down a little. But yeah, keep records. And make notes of your ailments, all of your ailments. I made notes. I didn't bring them with me. I lost them somewhere. They're in a pile of junk down in the basement. But I made notes on everything. And well, here, you know, I couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't sleep a whole night. I was restless. You sleep all night, then your back pain goes away. Then your something else clears up. You can breathe better because you've lost that weight. You can walk better, and all of a sudden, especially if you're an older person and you've got some health problems, this is like miraculous. And I didn't throw my pills away immediately, but I was feeling so good. The first week I cut them in half, and by week two I threw them out and never gone back since. But that's how long it took me to realize that, hey, and you know what effect throwing the pills away had? I think throwing the pills away helps mental clarity too, because I think all these uh, different medications that you're on, and believe me, when you go on a medication, and I'm going to tell you, I went in nursing homes now. I hate to tell people all this stuff, but when you're an 80-year old and you've worked all your life, uh, you get in a lot of different situations. But I've been involved with doctors. I've been involved in nursing homes. I was in the medical industry myself for a while, in medical instrumentation and research instrumentation. But I found out that these people, when you walk in a nursing home, they got little cups of pills and they make sure they take them. And when the doctor puts you on a pill, if you go on a blood pressure med and all of a sudden you've got anxiety and somebody else puts you on an anxiety pill and then somebody else puts you on a blood thinner, if they're different physicians, you'll never go off of them. One doctor will not want to interfere with another doctor, and they're getting better at it now. The facility I go to, if you request, hey, I'm not going to take these anymore, which I did. They took them off my chart. But yeah, uh, the pharmaceuticals are actually known to cause brain fog and anxiety in people. And I've seen basically healthy people go to nursing homes and they start giving them the pills and they slide downhill in 3 6 months they're gone. So
Yeah, it's a bad situation. It's quite depressing when you see people like they're just kind of living to get through their meds every day, right?
right, that's all they look forward to, taking meds 3 times a day. And some of them are 3 times a day, some of them are once a day, some are once every 3 days.
Mm.
So you need a chart to keep track of them. And I am not joking when I'm saying, when I used to work in the nursing homes, not taking care of patients, I was involved in the mechanical HVAC industry at the time, doing water treatment. I used to have to go through the wards. I'd get through there about lunchtime when they're giving everybody their pills, and they're all stacked up in little cups.
So, Steve, how can we find you online? You have a YouTube channel?
Uh, yeah, it's well, I don't have the website put together yet, but you can go to YouTube at Old Carnivore.
And what kind of videos do you have on there?
Well, basically, it's my story. I don't get into any doing recipes or any of that stuff. I don't believe in it, so I'm not going to do it. The only things that I do believe in, and I will say this, is when you get bad cramps, sometimes you need electrolytes. So I will push an electrolyte occasionally. The other thing is, um, well, I don't know if you've watched any of my videos, but I was diagnosed with bladder cancer. And I found out how to control the cancer by controlling your metabolism, which basically is your ketone ratio. And you have to keep the ratio of glucose to ketones measured in moles uh, down to about 2 or lower. And the average person is probably up around a couple thousand. So if you get your uh, metabolism down there to where your ratio is a 2.0, uh, you can get rid of a lot of problems, and cancer being one of them, because they claim that you can starve cancer cells. And the way to do it is not to feed them sugar and carbs.
So, what's the status of that diagnosis that you had?
Well, the status is I went, I've been doing treatments. They call them BCG treatments, or basically Nurse Cratchit comes in dressed in a hazmat suit with double gloves on and the 60 cc syringe, and injects you with uh, the BCG, which is Bacillus, some French name. I don't know. I couldn't pronounce it when I was younger. I doubt if I can do it now properly. But it's tuberculosis. They actually inject you with the tuberculosis virus. And they do this once a week for 6 weeks. Then you take a month off and you go in for a check. Well, I just went in for my check, and they did a cysto, or a cystoscopy is the proper name, where they go in and they look at the bladder, and the tumor, which they cut out, has not reoccurred. But I still have to go through these procedures. They tell me that their success rate with these treatments for the tumor not coming back for 3 years is 50%. So I figure it's better odds in Vegas. Where I got the tumor, I mean, I smoked and did everything else, and my lungs are fine, and I've got a pulse ox of around 100 most of the time. But where I got the tumor most likely is when I was stationed at Camp Lejeune uh, back during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the water is toxic. And right now, I don't know if you've seen the advertisement, it's on all the channels for the cancer victims and other victims of the Camp Lejeune water treatment. They call it the Camp Lejeune Justice Act of 2022. And I think there are 220,000 people who have applied to get some compensation from death, and the families applied, and the hospital treatments, which get expensive. But I'm doing real well. I mean, I feel good, and I don't expect to die from that cancer. Let me put it that way. But you
Um,
never know. I don't know anybody who's been around uh, for a couple hundred years in this day and age. Maybe the carnivore diet will help that. You never know, but we all have an expiration date. So, but I'm doing good. I feel good about everything. And
um,
the carnivore diet is responsible for that.
hmm. I'm happy to hear you're doing so well, Steve. I'll link to your channel in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. And the only reason I do this is because I hope it'll help other people, especially older people like me, where they think there's no hope. Well, believe me, there's hope. Like I said, I can barely walk, and it's amazing, truly amazing. And thank you for having me, Dave. I appreciate it.